Welcome to Hospitality on the Rise, the podcast about the people shaping the hospitality industry and their journeys. I'm your host, Alice Chang, founder and CEO of Culinary Agents, hospitality's go-to hiring platform. And I'm here to give you your dose of virtual mentorship. Here, we'll be sharing the stories, lessons learned, and advice from hospitality leaders who've carved out their own path to success. After all, this industry is where many get their start and go on to do incredible things. Whether you're a pro, starting out, or just love the hustle, this podcast highlights what makes hospitality extraordinary: the people. I'm so excited to have Chef Sarah Grueneberg with us today. Sarah is the chef and co-owner of Monteverde restaurant in Pastificio. Did I say that right? Pastificio?
Pastificio.
Pastificio. I got to get
There
that.
you go.
There we go. Thank you. That's one I didn't check before. I'm part of the Culinary Collective, a board member of the Southern Smoke Foundation, a member of the Independent Restaurant Coalition, a member of Southern Foodways Alliance, and an author. I mean, you got time for anything else these days, Sarah? Anyway, we're so excited to have you. I was joking around before that I've been, you're the woman of the hour. I've been trying to catch you. I'm so glad we finally nailed you down to join us because
Thank you.
I think you have such a great career path and so inspiring. So let's hear it. How did you get started in hospitality?
Well, I went right into culinary school. I loved cooking though, and I cooked with my family and cooked at home, experimented a lot as a child. I've always loved just being around and being in the kitchen any way I could. And so high school was, a little challenging. I think that for a lot of kitchen people, a lot of chefs, like we all kind of have similar paths. Like we don't do super well in a classroom style environment. We like to be out and about, moving around. And so I went right into culinary school right when I turned 18, right? And then did pretty well in school, did my internship at Brennan's of Houston, which is where I met Chris Shepard, who was my mentor. And it all kind of is history after that. It all kind of moved pretty fast.
Did you know early on when you were, when did you know this was going to be the thing for you? Was there a moment, a dish, or?
I think that for me, it became early on that I had a real love for cooking, but I don't think I knew that people could be chefs. And so it was really when Food Network came about that I realized wow, you could actually be a chef. There's chefs that are running restaurants. It wasn't just, growing up, a lot of restaurants that I frequented with my family, they weren't chef driven restaurants, right? They were chain restaurants. You didn't really know who was making your food. And that's really changed in the past 40 years in our country.
Yeah. Now it's not only do you know who you're making your food, you know where the produce is coming from or the farm that's growing, whatever, which is great. I mean, that says a lot about dining culture and in general and the ripple effects of how that creates jobs, creates industries. And even you mentioned Food Network. I mean, back then they opened up, I think, a whole new world of career opportunities too, in different ways. And
They did.
so it's
I watched the old school one where it was Essence of Emerald and Chef du Jour and a lot of actual cooking shows, not so much competition. I think there was Ready, Set, Cook, which was a fun competition.
Right. But yeah, I love it. Were you always in Chicago? Because I see that Monteverde recently had its 10-year anniversary. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That is no small feat. And I was lucky enough to dine there years ago, and I'm sad and embarrassed to say I haven't been there recently, but I also haven't been in Chicago recently. So I have to make it out there more often. But first of all, it was just the vibe. It's busy. The food is delicious. I was there with a couple folks, and we were kind of up on the tall tables. I don't know if it's reconfigured now. But I just love it. And to keep, to keep that up and to be, still so involved in so many different things. Can you talk about how things have evolved over the years for you?
At the restaurant specifically?
Yeah.
Well, we opened in 2015. That was after cooking, gosh, so I started in 2001. So it took about 14 years, 15 years of cooking, and then to go on my own. And Monteverde hasn't really, it's evolved, but it still stays true to the culture and the pasta making. And so those high tables you were talking about is our tables that you can see at the bar with our pasta station. And it
Yeah.
really makes the dining experience interactive with what's coming to your table because you can watch our team hand make the pasta to order. But we've always done that. I think evolution wise in Monteverde, we've just grown to be busier, to we have more services, we have a larger team. Um, so, it started with 6 nights a week, is now 10 services, 5 lunch, 5 dinners, and we
Wow.
close 2 days a week.
That's amazing. And I don't want to gloss over, and I got ahead of myself. I don't want to gloss over the different experiences that led to you opening Monteverde. So I'm going to rewind a little bit myself and hone in on. You mentioned that you started in Brennan's and Houston's. That's where you met Chris, which we're gonna get to how that
Yeah.
relationship has evolved into some of the things you're working on these days. And I had
Yes.
the pleasure of seeing you because we also support Seven Spoke Foundation in Houston a couple months ago. But from there, you went to work as a line cook at Spiaggia, right?
I did. I did. So I worked my way up in the Brennan's kitchen. I became the sous chef, one of the first female and youngest sous chefs of their time. I was 22 and I was there for 2 years. And then I was recommended, my chef's team and, friends were like, you're young. Like, do you want to live in Houston forever? Do you want to experience other food cities? And so, I felt like I was working at the top restaurant at the time in Houston. So it wasn't, you know, I felt like I was kind of where I was supposed to be. Then moving was really the option to experience something different. And so I flew up to Chicago on my Southwest flight and did 2 days of stages and interviewed with Missy Robbins at Spiaggia, and then flew back up and did a 2 day stage and got my position as line cook. And so and I always tell the team, like young cooks coming out, like, don't be so caught up in the titles and like the transition of the titles, because it really is about what you're learning. If you're learning constantly and you're being challenged and you feel like you're adapting and growing, that's really what's most important to prepare you for that big position when it's available. So I went from sous chef at Brennan's to line cook at Spiaggia, then line cooked there for 2 years, a year and a half, and then sous chef and then CDC executive chef and opened my own restaurant.
I love that. I'm gonna hone in on that because it's also about who you're working with, right? And Chef Missy needs no introduction as
Yeah,
well,
she's
and
awesome.
she's amazing, and she was actually a guest on this pod as well, and she talked about her time at Spiaggia as well, being very informative to her career, and that's so important. Titles are titles, and it's great for structure and for you to think about, but when an opportunity opens a door to a lot of future
Yes.
opportunities, the thinking really hard on that is, definitely something that's worth
Yes.
it.
It doesn't have to always be an uphill climb, right? Like I know
Yeah.
like a friend of mine who was the CDC of a 3 Michelin star restaurant here in Chicago just moved to Noma to work in um the kitchen that they test all of their creations in. So it's I think important for the listeners here to think about that, and every position, every job you have kind of helps you leapfrog or jump into the next one.
Exactly, and nowadays, there's so much information out there that you really have no excuse for not doing your own homework. What are you interested in? What do you wanna learn? Who does that the best? And how do you get in front
Oh,
of them?
I mean, what a strong statement, Alice. I wish everyone felt that way. I think the side part of that is a lot of people are waiting to be force fed or fed information. It's really hard, I think, to get people to advocate for themselves and dig deep and ask themselves, what do they want? So I agree with you, but I also think that I would love to see more young culinarians really, when someone comes and stages with us, I say, what kind of food do you want to cook? And they look at me like, they never even thought about it before. Why are you here? Why are you interested in Italian food? So that's important. And I think a great call out.
Yeah, yeah. No, we do a lot of work with culinary schools and young folks, and I should say folks entering in the industry, and that's something that we always emphasize too. It's like you don't need to define, just like if you're entering, a regular liberal arts college, like you don't need to know what you want to be, in the long run, but you need to hone in on some of your interests and give those tries.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but that's great. And also, you talked about, spending some time there. You worked there for quite some time, and you went up the ladder there all the way to executive chef.
Yes. I was there for 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's longevity if I've
Eight
seen.
and change.
Yeah. Which is another thing that I feel like sometimes gets lost, in the
Yeah.
process these days. Um, and then what were when you were kind of, coming up with your concept, did you feel like the time was right, or how did that process go? Were you like, "I wanna have my own place, and I found the perfect spot," or I just, I know it's right
I mean, I really had
timing-wise?
no idea what I was getting myself into. Like, I think we all say we want our own restaurant, but then what that really means is heavier than you realize. And it's a growing experience. And it's the next step of going from executive chef and running your own kitchen to running your own restaurant. I mean, it's the whole house. It's not just the kitchen and the menu. So, I say I was prepared. No, but did I have the drive and the want and the desire not to fail? Yes. And so I think that is, you got to have that hunger. You got to have that um, humility and strength to say, hey, this is something new. I need to figure out, but also knowing you don't get a lot of chances. So you really got to do the work and test and train before you open the doors.
Yeah, I mean, especially these days where I was talking to somebody else, and you kind of, because of social media and because of the dining culture now, you're kind of always under a spotlight or a microscope on, whether it's the first day or the, 10-year anniversary, right? What can you remember? You can probably remember a lot of them, but can you remember like one or two of your biggest challenges in the beginning?
Of Monteverde,
Yeah, of opening your own place.
the biggest challenges. I mean, hiring was really hard, and not just because I'm on a Culinary Agents podcast, but hiring was very hard because in between opening Monteverde, from leaving Spiaggia to Monteverde, it was about a 2-year gap. And I worked in Florida for about 7, 8, longer than that, about 9 months. And then when it was a time to open here, I just didn't have a group of cooks that I was pulling from. I didn't have a sister restaurant that people were coming over. So it was calling a few friends that I had worked with to say, hey, do you want to go on this crazy adventure together? Um, and hiring people, and just trying to even the simplest of tasks, like our arancini, for example, that we make several of every day. God, at first it took like 6 hours to do that project. And it just something that takes forever. The first day of opening the restaurant, cook accidentally hit and pulled the fire alarm lever. So the alarm went off and the fire department police officers came, and um, it was kind of stressful, but I think sometimes those things need to happen. They're like the good luck charm.
Right.
So I would say, hiring, and then also just like letting go of not being able to plan, because even if you're ready, doesn't mean that you're ready. So
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, going from executive chef to owner, that, and oftentimes we talk about, has its whole other kind of leap, if you will, where, paperwork, I guess, licenses, filing for stuff, HR,
yes,
all that stuff.
that's all a lot. And I'm very lucky. My business partner, Meg, helped do a lot of that work. I mean, it's so much admin, and it's going back to like the beginning where I said like I wasn't necessarily maybe the best student, like it feels like school. Like it feels like you got to get all
Yeah.
your stuff. Like I have like a whole file folder here right now for the second restaurant. So it's like it's like
Ooh.
growing into all of those things. So
Ooh, we're gonna get to that.
oh, I don't know, Alice. It's top secret.
Oh, okay. Okay,
It's
we just
no, we
got the
can talk.
we
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 can tease it, but it's still just a manila folder.
well, hey, that's how things start, right?
Yes. Yes.
A napkin, a little notepad by the bed, and, and
Yep.
then it evolves. Okay, so now we're in Monteverde, where I, meant to get to before I jumped the gun. And so being around for 10 years, were there things, I would say that, because these 10 years are really, I would say, are the crux of, the evolution of both dining and kind of hospitality, right? In general, the industry. You had COVID within that 5-year span. And, for a lot of restaurants, for the industry, they're just kind of getting into their new groove now, 5 years later, right? Um, what were some of the kind of lessons learned um, going into your potential second location, you would bring with you?
My biggest lesson learned is that no matter how hard things are, they do get better. And it feels like a lot of times that it's not going to get better. And so there was a lot of those days, a lot of those months that felt like there was no no light at the end of the tunnel. But it does. And so I try to remember that now and take things a day at a time and try to live in the present and not worry too much about the past and the future. Um, I do reflect on the past a lot and like learning from it, but I believe in the future things are going to happen.
Yeah, and I bet that philosophy, carries itself over into kind of your leadership philosophy as well. I mean, when we talk to folks who have had a long, successful career and, quite frankly, are still just getting started, um, they oftentimes say, like, when they had a chance to take a step back or how their point of view has changed over the years and how that's impacted their teams. Um, would you say that your kind of leadership style has also evolved over
Oh
the
yes.
years?
I mean, when you're younger, I was more immature. I wasn't confident. I didn't, I was more insecure. Like, I think that's the challenge with young, like, as we're growing, is like you aren't fully formed yet as a chef. Like, you need all these experiences to get there. So, it's those kinds of um, insecurities and things like that can make it quite challenging. But um, you know, I would say I was more stressed. I would get frustrated more easily, feeling like things were all on my shoulders. And um now I really believe in trying to let the team make some mistakes. Like I think for a long time I tried to prevent the mistakes because I knew the mistakes I made. Like remember when I said I focus on the past? So I reflect on a lot of mistakes often and like how I would do things differently if they were to come about. And so one fault of that then is you want to try to fix or prevent small failures or small issues from coming up. But your team needs those to grow on their own. Like you can't like walk them through it and say, okay, you see this over here, don't do that. And that over there, don't do that. Like you have to really feel it and work through it and like have their own gut check. And so that's maybe a little bit more where my style has changed is that I'm not trying to like save everybody. I'm trying to like let them make some mistakes and then try to be there to say, all right, let's talk about it. Like, what would you do differently? What would you not do? And also, I think trying to get people like out of their heads a little bit. Like, it's really hard to not be all in your head, like overthinking things. And so, I am a self-proclaimed overthinker, so I'm trying not to. So that's another place where I would say my style has changed a little bit. But it's hard when your whole passion in life is your career, because you obsess about food, and I obsess about food, and I obsess about restaurants and making food better and being at 10 years now, like what does need to change? What do we need to change on the menu? Like what things should stay on? Like those are all real things. And so um it's a mix of uh, always adapting and growing and changing your style just based on your experiences. But I wouldn't say it's like a conscious, like, okay, now I'm this person. I'm just like Sarah 10.0. Like I couldn't be Sarah 10.0 if I hadn't done like Sarah 3.0 and 4.0 and 5.0.
Right. Well, that's so important too because, one of the things that we hear often, in these conversations also is that, leaders who when they were younger, they were like, "By the time I'm this, I'm gonna have, this
Yeah.
many restaurants," and it's great to set goals for yourself,
Yeah.
but there's this balance of recognizing that in order to get there, there are a lot of experiences that will help you be successful when you get
Right.
there. And if you
Yeah.
don't spend the time to make those mistakes, work for someone who's willing to like coach them through and help them understand why that was a mistake and what are some ways to, and help them grow, then you may get to that situation and get that opportunity to open and then realize that
Yes.
you didn't have the training wheels in a way,
Right.
grown to get there. So I love that. I love that. That's great advice. So you know, you we're gonna go back to because you also participate and you are active in supporting a lot of these industry organizations as well, which is you're
Yes.
so passionate about the food. You have your restaurant. You're super busy. And you're making time to give back to the industry, which I think is so important and very worth highlighting and talking about a little bit. Um, when did you kind of reconnect, or I should say, you never disconnected, but when did you reconnect with Chris to kind of get more involved in Southern Spoke?
Wow. So Chris and I were always friends. I would go and eat at his restaurant. He was on top of the world and just amazing. And um we kind of our friendship rekindled, gosh, I would say probably about 10 years ago. And I always, he was doing Southern Smoke. Southern Smoke just turned 10 also. And so I think the first few years of Southern Smoke, I was opening the restaurant, so I wasn't really involved. And it hadn't really evolved until the hurricane hit. So, a lot of Southern Smoke was um, for MS and building an awareness and raising money for that. And then when Harvey hit and Houston was underwater for, God, 2, 3 months,
Yeah.
and restaurant workers had nothing, and restaurant owners had nothing because the insurance and like just rebuilding a city after a crisis like that takes so much time that Chris realized, there isn't any foundation set up for emergency crisis for our industry. And that's when the new kind of development or the new initiative for Southern Smoke started. And that's really now where Southern Smoke, I think, has grown the most. And we try to raise a lot of money for Southern Smoke because it's been really valuable for our team. I would say during COVID, it hit. So Harvey was pre-COVID and then COVID hit, and Southern Smoke was huge for that. There was a large amount of money donated in Illinois, Chicago for workers in Chicago, in Illinois. And so trying to just get the word out, trying to get people to know that there's the ability to, you need help, if you need to go to get a doctor's appointment, if you have surgery and you don't know how you're going to afford it, your child needs health care, something, there is these things available. And so raising awareness and raising funds for this emergency relief. And now the second part is this Behind You initiative, which is the free mental health care or no cost mental health care for industry workers. And we're in 10 states trying to get to 12. But they offer 20 free sessions, 20 no cost sessions in a calendar year. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's something that's so important, and we're always happy to get that word out too. And it's such a great organization. And Chris gives the best hugs, and the big
He
bear
does.
hugs.
He basically created a foundation that lets him give hugs all over the country, which is honestly maybe our new tagline.
Seriously.
I'll tell Lindsay.
Yeah. um. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now back to
Yes.
you.
Okay.
Back to the regular scheduled programming. No, so you alluded to that you have new projects underway. How do you keep yourself inspired and balanced?
Well, inspired and balanced are two different
2 different
things.
things. Yes, I combined the
So
question, sorry.
inspired, I would say, comes from travel and comes from eating out and eating out at anywhere. Like it doesn't need to be just a fancy dinner. But taking ideas, um, looking at other, at different chefs, their feeds, seeing what they're cooking. Sometimes those things spark an idea that you have back in your head that you haven't really worked on in several years. I like to think of my brain as kind of like a old library card catalog, which I'm sure no one's going to know what that is on this call, but
I
basically
do.
it was, I feel like I have like a lot of little sheets in my head of different dishes that I've thought about over the years that I want to do that I haven't done. And so inspiration, I think, is that. And then balance. Um, it's really hard to have balance if you don't have a good team and don't have a happy team. And so it's really important to me to try to fulfill the needs of our team to have balance in their lives and career as they're coming up. And I also have been doing a good amount of yoga, which has been very helpful for me mentally, and I feel strength, and it's a challenge that's all personal. It's all my own. And so that and speaking with, a therapist once a week, once a month, depending on what needs to happen. It's always good to talk to someone and just get some of those thoughts out of your head. And like, it's not a bad thing. And so I think that the balance comes from the mental health care piece, and the physical exercise is a huge place for that.
Yeah, and that's so important because if you're not gonna I mean, that's something that I don't even wanna say trend, I would say evolution, is that the leaders need to take care of themselves so that they can take care of their teams and their businesses, and they have the space to grow themselves and their teams, right?
Yes.
And so with that, as we're all kind of pushing to this industry being a career, it's a profession, and Culinary Agents is such a big proponent of like you could take your career you know, down many different paths depending on what you want to do. And this is a great place to spend it. But you can only have that long career if you take care of yourself.
Yes, it's true. It's very
Um,
true.
yeah, and so what's next for you?
Well, what's next? We are working on our next restaurant, which is very exciting. We are we purchased the building, and so we're in a big construction phase. But that's pretty far out from defining the concept as a whole. I mean, we have it, but it's not pitch ready yet.
Yeah, it's
Um,
in the folder.
it's in the folder. It's in the card catalog.
I
Telling
love
you,
it.
it's not
I love
ready. It's not ready. My designer who designed Monteverde, Karen Harold, she said, "I'm pregnant with your restaurant right now, and then I'm going to give birth and give it to you, and then I leave." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is so sad. You helped me build this restaurant," but totally is true. Things are in an incubation period. So the new restaurant, I'm very busy with the American Express Culinary Collective project. We are creating recipes for the 17 Centurion lounges across the country, which has been really fun, a big lift, but really inspiring. And I'm working with some of the best chefs in the country, Kwame Onwachi, Mashama Bailey, and Michael Solomonov. And those three are amazing, and I feel very connected. So it's been a fun thing that we didn't realize. I just got back from Miami. We did a dinner together, and it's one of those things that, um, you know, you never know where life can take you. So, new project of ushering Monteverde into its, teens and deciding what that is. I think that's hard. So if there's any restaurateurs and chefs out there that want to mentor me on what to take off the menu and what to keep on, that would be great. Because it's always hard. You don't want to take your favorite dishes off the menu that people love, but I also think you don't want to, you want to remain fresh and new. And so what Monteverde needs in that. And working with Chef Bailey, who's amazing, who's our executive chef. And she just did Top Chef, and she's a star and a bright light. And so, I'm committed to what, she wants to do and what she wants accomplish. And so there's a lot of little irons in the fire of what can we do and how do we see the business growing? Um, how do we bring all of these things together and make that happen? And so that's really where I'm focused now.
Yeah, sounds very exciting. I love it. And obviously, goes without saying, let us know how we can help with anything.
Thank
Um,
you. We will for sure.
yes, exciting. On that note, we're going to go to quickfire.
Okay.
What advice would you tell your younger self?
That you're special and believe in yourself.
What's your advice for someone struggling in the industry?
Maybe make it a little change. Maybe you're not at the right place. Maybe find another restaurant and mentor that can help you.
What's your advice for fellow hospitality leaders?
Help continue to push and grow our industry to make it, it's changed so much. So to continue to listen to our team and help push to make it grow and continue to evolve. And it's really important that the evolution of the restaurant industry, like you said, is building great foundational careers for people.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sarah, for taking
You're
the time
welcome.
this busy holiday season and all your projects and irons in the fire.
Yes, thank
Um,
you.
We cannot wait to see what's next, and I can't wait to see you at the restaurant.
Thank you. So fun.
Remember, success looks different for everyone in hospitality. No two paths are the same. If you have a leader or a topic you want to hear about, email media@culinaryaagents.com. Hospitality on the Rise is brought to you by Culinary Agents, connecting top talent with employers since 2012. Whether you're hiring or looking for your next opportunity, join us at culinaryaagents.com. For more inspiration, subscribe to Hospitality on the Rise and visit hospitalitycareerpaths.com, a free platform by Culinary Agents. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. And if you love this episode, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration.